This is a healer's roundtable, so I'm not quite sure what Chipicon had intended.
She had a list of things she was going to talk about. She had a bunch of new books that she had bought today or yesterday, and she's going to talk about them. I have no particular expertise in this area.
I have some of it, being a Reiki master, as well as a Karuna level 2 and a couple other things.
Okay.
As well as one of the few practicing Runefolder masters in, if not New England, if not the entire United States.
All right, we have you back.
Oh, good.
Might want to get your microphone turned back on and put your headset on.
Sorry about that. My modem
That's all right.
just went.
We have begun the recording. Sean did that, and
yeah.
Are we recording? Yeah, we are recording.
We are recording. I've already started that.
Great.
So we are.
And I see we have a bunch of people here, so we should talk about healing stuff.
Yes, and that's what we were doing. That's what we were starting as you popped in.
We were assessing who had the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yay. Yeah, because we got a bunch of good healers here, and we might as well share it. I am currently prepping for a herbal teaching weekend, so I am focused right now on herbs. But I did want to be very careful to remember things like crystal healing and acupuncture and Reiki and acupressure, because you can do that at home. And
yeah, they get nervous if you start doing acupuncture without a certification.
This one is my go-to book on acupressure, which is really useful in many ways, because I'm fond of it because because the class I discovered it in was showing us how to do things, and I've seen some really good results from it. So whether clearing sinuses, speeding up infections, and the thing is that, as with many kinds of healing, it can, one point can do more than one thing. I was in the class, I specifically remembered, because it was embarrassing. On your sternum, there's a row of points depending on whether they're 1 finger or 2 fingers, 3 fingers down. But if you just run down if you just kind of press on your sternum and you go down, and then, you find one that makes you do that. It's like, oh yeah, ouch, that hurts. I don't want to press there. But if you then press there, that's because that's where there was a blockage. And you press it about 20 times. And my kids hated it when I got into acupressure. Oh my God. I say, I've got, I'm this, I'm that. And I'd say, okay, come over here. And I would run my finger into their sensitive point, and they hated it. And because it is uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it's painful, but let's just say little kids are not eager to try that. But when you are stuffed up and can't breathe and can't go to sleep because you'll drown, knowing that you can poke in a couple places and suddenly your head will clear out, and 10 minutes later you can breathe. I don't care if it hurts. But the point I was trying to make is, there was one, it was 90 degrees at a campground, and one of the ones on your sternum adjusts your temperature, internal thermostat. And everybody could say, the ones that were, if you're too hot and there was a blockage there and you pushed on it, and they would say, oh, wow, I feel much cooler. Great thing. So if you haven't thought of looking into acupressure, you might want to. But I discovered in that class, I did 2 pokes and then I stopped, and I went to the teacher after and I said, I think it stimulated my bowel. Was I in the wrong spot? And she said, no, that spot also stimulates your bowels very good if you have constipation. Well, you could have warned us.
Oh,
At 98 degrees, she was more interested in helping people cool off and not get heat stroke. So
yeah. The one we tend to use is acupressure potent points. That's the one that Kathy is always recommending when she teaches acupressure classes. Me, all I remember is the one to drain my sinuses, which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if it hurts a little bit, it's better than the alternative, which is standing around waiting for the sinus to drain.
do you say you remember it? Why don't you tell people? Then they could try it.
Better, I will show you. Excuse me, removing my glasses. What you do is, first and foremost, you find there's a little notch. Can people see what I'm doing? Up. You have to hit both of the orbits. There's a little notch you can feel. And then you go about 3 fingers north of where your neck meets your shoulders. You press on them. You press on both. You will know it's the right notch because suddenly your head will hurt. Oh, there it goes. And usually within about 4 or 5 breaths, you feel your sinuses open, and downside, you will get a nasty taste in your mouth as the stuff in your sinuses has to go somewhere, and it usually goes down and it hits the back of your tongue first. If you end up with a nasty metallic taste, you've succeeded. Just like I have in my mouth now.
But it's useful, and this is exactly the kind of thing I was looking for this discussion.
As far as I'm concerned, that's got to be one of the most universally useful acupressure points around, especially when you're out at events or festivals where you're out in nature, or you're at a con where you're breathing electrically heated or cooled, recycled air that's got about as much moisture in it as the bottom of Death Valley. And you wake up in the morning and your head is just thumping from too much air conditioning or too much electric heating. That's the one. That's the one that will open your head. Just make sure you have something liquid to drink by you when you do that, like I forgot to do right now. So I'm probably going to be doing the cat just got a caramel look on my face for the rest of the evening. So I've got a nice hot curry waiting for me when we're done. That'll take care of that.
Oh, and curry is medicinal itself. It's a wonderful thing. Yes,
especially the way I make it.
Hippocrates, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. There is a lot of food out there that will really feed you. That will has an impact.
There are reasons why curry is a constant food in our house, winter or summer. In the winter, it opens up our sinuses. In the summer, it makes you sweat and your body cools itself. Given the various ingredients in any good curry, things like ginger and garlic and turmeric and various forms of chilies, and I usually also add paprika. It's an entire medicine chest in a bowl.
Well, all the spicy foods do something like that, don't they? So depending on what your cuisine preferences are, you can find something, Mexican, Hispanic. How about the Philippines and Puerto Rico have their own versions of things?
It really depends.
My husband is from India, and I'm really excited because I'm going to be going with him for the entire month of October. And one of the things that I'm really excited about when we go there is, meeting with the Ayurvedic doctors there and discussing the culinary aspects of the Ayurvedic medicine, because food is just such a huge thing in my culture, like how we heal each other is through food. And in Ayurvedic medicine, it isn't just like the ingredients. There's that part of it too. There's the science of Ayurvedic medicine, but then there's also the ritual of Ayurvedic medicine where they have like several courses to a meal, and they all have to be given in a certain order, and each course does something to the system to preamble the next course, and there's just like this whole thing to it. It's so much more than just the ingredients, and I'm so excited to go and learn all of that this next month, and I'll definitely come back to share with you guys because it's
Oh, thank you.
it's exciting.
One little bit of advice. The street food that comes straight out of the hot oil or off the charcoal grill is way safer than the stuff you get in the hotels.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Did you have anything else? I'm assuming almost everybody who popped in either has something that they want to learn or something that they want to share. Did you have something else you wanted to share? Or?
I have huge amounts, but I don't want this to become the Star Wolf show. It reminds me, I also have to change my name. I got to figure out how to do that permanently.
Okay, good question.
Excuse me, rename.
Well, I know, with regards to healing, where I come from, it's very much about the relationship with the plants and the plant medicines with regards to healing. It's also the relationship with the person asking for the help, because usually there's there's healers in each town. There's not that everyone has their own territory. I'm definitely not going to say that, but there's definitely like a community healer that is localized. And so that healer is also very much involved in the community and knows everybody there. And so that knowledge and that relationship also helps to cater the healing to be more person-centered versus, a one-size-fits-all. And that's done through the relationships with the plants and through the relationships with the community. So I just wanted to share that piece because I know here in Western medicine, it's very much a one size fits all, just take this pill, here's a $50 charge, and we move on. So it's definitely not like that there. It's usually whatever the issue is, it's a multiple visit issue. When you're going for a healing, you're going there for sessions because healing doesn't happen overnight. And it's very much therapeutically related as well in terms of mental health therapeutic. They spend a lot of time, quote unquote, consulting, and really getting into the mind of the person who needs the healing so that we understand how to work that person's spirit and how to connect bestly with their energy force.
Yeah. That's something that I think that we need to understand a little more in this world of scientific medicine. We are looking at people who we're looking at this chemical does this chemical does that, and doesn't always work that way. There is we like to extract a compound from a plant, saying, oh, well, if white willow bark is good for headaches and fevers, let's extract it and we'll make aspirin. And aspirin is very convenient. You don't have to go out and get willow bark and make tea out of it. You just pop a couple pills. But I was very pleasantly surprised when I tried white willow bark tea to discover it's not nasty. It's definitely a herbal tasting thing, but it also doesn't have you don't get the stomach acid issues. You don't get a lot of that. With coltsfoot, I love coltsfoot because it clears the head. without getting, if you know, yeah, diphenhydramine is great, but you get all foggy and I can't think very well, and makes a lot of people sleepy. With me, I'm still perfectly awake, but my head's clear. I love coltsfoot. And we all have our things, but there is the issue. There's both the fact that a plant is complex. It has many things that might contribute to the healing effect, but also plants have beings in them. So plants want to help you.
Mhm.
And if they don't, and one plant might not want to help the same, different people with the same problems. I went on a trip to Kauai, and this is you can say, okay, Chippewa needs her meds adjusted, but I went to a museum and saw that I think it's called the white Hawaiian hibiscus. It was a traditional healing plant. It's been over harvested and it's now endangered. And I went to a park the next afternoon, and there was nobody around, so I sat down beside one of these plants and I went to a light trance and I started talking to it. And I said, I'm really sorry about you being endangered. I hope that you managed to survive. And the plant said, yes, we'll survive just fine. We're going to, we're taking care of ourselves. And I said, but I understand that you're being over harvested. And I said, yeah, we're really sorry, but we have to not be medicinal for a while. And I said, what, you can do that? I had never heard that plants were in control of what they did to you. And they said, yes, and we're really sorry because we like helping people, but because of the overharvesting, we have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's not something I've heard about. Then I thought about it over the next year, and I remembered, I don't know if any of you remember the big excitement with St. John's wort being very good for depression, especially seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah,
And
kind of hard not to forget it.
I think it's Commission E said that this was the greatest thing, and something like half the people in Europe who were depressed were on it. And then they did tests in America and they found it to be totally worthless and it didn't make any impact. And I started thinking, okay, if they have started planting big fields of St. John's wort and harvesting it in order to make medicine out of it, the St. John's wort might have done just the same thing that the hibiscus did and said, no, we're not, we're here to help people. We are not here to make somebody money. And to me, that's something that you need to be aware of. You need to talk to the plant, sing to the plant, make a relationship with the plant. Say, I have this issue. Can you help me? And maybe it'll want to help you, or maybe it will, if you're talking to it, if you're listening to what the plant has to say to you, and I dare say it's a skill you have to work on, then you can take that and you can, it might tell you, in your case, you really don't need dandelion, you need burdock or whatever, but you can listen to them. And or if you can't, if you haven't learned that, 90% of adults can learn to dowse with a pendulum the first time they try, and 100% of children. That's according to the American Dowsing Society's tests. If you can't talk to the plant, you can use your dowse, your pendulum or your whatever sticks, and say, what wants to help me? I've also found, and I think this is important, may not be as useful if you're living in an apartment in a city, but if something that you've never seen before suddenly starts growing in your yard, get your Peterson's Guide to Medicinal Plants, try and figure out what it is. Because if you might look it up, you'll say, oh, we were overrun by mugwort. And I said, oh, okay, shall we weed these? And then we looked them up. It's for digestive disorders, insomnia, and anxiety. Like, oh, we should be drinking this every day.
Yep.
It basically felt a sound, said, oh, those people need us, and they moved in to help. And that's our relationship with plants. And that's our relationship with herbs. And it makes me feel a whole lot better about harvesting a plant when I know that it came there to help me. Yeah, Leilani.
I love that so much. I love that so much. And it's so true. It's 100% true. I wanted to add a piece of that too. So I think healing, being the subject is such a holistic process. Like it's the energies of the healer, it's the energies of the plant spirits, it's the energy of the client. It's the whole thing. And we have to, I think the art of it all is managing that energy and understanding, what is needed and who to call and how to use it. And I think part of, the consulting sessions that we do and really getting to know your patient is more about getting them to be open and understanding to the healing process, because you could have the best medicines in the world. You could have the best relationships to the plant spirits in the world. You could have your concoctions, down to a science, so the very littlest pieces. But if the patient does not want to be healed, or if the patient is resisting healing, or if the patient is not open to change, none of that will be of any service. And I think it's so important to empower the patient, in addition to getting them, like you were saying, to build relationships with plant spirits. It opens up so many doors for them, so that healing becomes almost a cyclical process and not just a one-way thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is Michelle, if I can hop on for a second to add to what you're saying. I used to live in the city, and I was blessed because I had stuff that would blow into my garden, and I would always let it grow until I could figure out what it was. And it was usually something I needed or something to pass on to someone, which was really cool. When I lived there, my dad was dying of cancer, and he was on all this crappy medicine. And some things worked, some things didn't. And he had a rash that wouldn't go away. He tried all the doctors. It's like, okay, Dad, you ready to try a little witch doctor magic made with love with your daughter? And I mixed up a poultice of some Solomon seal and some other things fresh from the garden, laid it into a mustard paste. And it actually wound up after like 3 days removing and reducing the whole inflammation. So listen to that inner spirit. I'm in a new place. I'm not sure what's going on here yet. But I'm working with the land going, let me help you. Don't kill me yet. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely relate a lot to just speaking to the plant medicine, because for me, I have like a personal experience with mushrooms in particular. I asked them, I was like, help me with depression and anxiety. And I was able to grow mushrooms, no problem, in my room with 2 cats and 3 other people living in the house, no contamination at all. They would just grow for me because they're like, I can help you. That's great. Let's do it.
But then, of course, you've got people like me who have no connection to plants whatsoever.
Well, maybe you'll do better with crystals or something else. The thing is, there's a great deal of redundancy out there. There's so many ways to heal. I'm always telling people, get your Peterson's Guide, find out what's growing near you. It seems as silly to me to to do to go to the health food store and buy some Palo d'Arco or to Cat's Claw or whatever. We have everything nearby that if you learn herbalism, you start realizing how many different things will use the same, they can help with the same thing. So you don't necessarily need to just look up one and see what's the top of the list. You can look in your yard and see who's come to help you. And frequently, if you have a lawn, it may be dandelion or nettle or burdock or self-heal. I've always been a little suspicious with any one of the herbs that they call all heal, or because it seems like they're making outrageous claims for it. But at the same time, many of them do seem to be very good for many different things. And it may be that they're just really friendly and want to help people, which may be why they show up in so many lawns. So, because we want to help you. I read recently that in early America, people used to rip the grass out of their lawns to make more room for the plantain and nettle and other useful herbs. Which, like, okay, that's fun. Do you guys know about plantain?
Yeah.
Yes.
I see a lot of people, some herbalists are nodding here because I love to teach people about plantain, especially little kids, because once you've got them so they can look around, find the plantain and rub it on a bee sting or a bug bite or a scrape, they don't have to come running for some Bactine and a Band-Aid. It's empowering, and it's also a lot of fun to see that look on their face the first time they try it, and they're, you get stung by a bee, you know it. Yeah. And you rub it on and it's like, yeah, it worked. and then they're running around looking for somebody else who got stung by a bee so they can show them the neat trick.
Never underestimate the healing power of rocks. Never underestimate the healing power of rocks. Rocks are so easy to find, and they are so magical.
Don't forget your kitchen. A lot of people forget that a lot of the herbs that we use for cooking have magical uses. And it's real easy if you're making a big old pot of pasta and spaghetti. It's like, okay, I know oregano tastes good, but fresh oregano can also do this. The dried stuff, I'm going to mix it in with the concentrate on that energy there. So,
well, you know how they say that if your brain doesn't grow the chemicals you need to be mentally healthy, it's okay to use store-bought. Well, if you can't use wild herbs for some reason, it's okay to use store-bought.
Yeah. Or I know some people, they're trying to clear out a house, or it smells from fish, or something funky blew in that they weren't sure about it. Okay, just make a wet potpourri, put it on.
I'm sorry, you muted yourself. Somebody muted you.
That was me. I was trying to pin her.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Could you repeat that then?
Sorry about that.
My mistake. I wanted to have her up so people could watch her mouth move.
Sorry about that. I was saying that, in some cases, some people can't actively practice. So clearing a space or making it better, you can put a wet potpourri on, like cinnamon, or boil the sage. The advantage of doing the sage straight from the can is it helps clear out just the bad smells, but also the negative energies that people, sometimes you just got to hide it in the open in a different way.
Not to mention use the herbs in your kitchen faster so they don't go bad on you.
Yeah.
And we all it's like, just because you're telepathic doesn't mean you're clairvoyant. Just because you can find things doesn't mean that you necessarily are excellent at healing. My position is we're all excellent at healing. I think that we can all heal. I think, let's see, here's another little reminder. Yes, Reiki and Runwalder and so many other different, I remember therapeutic touch, silver mind control. Humans heal, for goodness sakes, it's a thing. A hug when a mother hugs a child, the pain goes down. And so use your strengths. If you're not a musician, then don't waste your time on that violin. But if you are, do the thing that you're good at. And if you have an affinity or rocks, go for melody and Love Is in the Earth. And
Excellent choice.
Yes,
And if you can find them, the various expansions that go after that.
yes, including the one with photographs of the stones.
Yeah. Yep.
And having just told everybody, use what's local to you. I also like, let's see, there it is, the Barefoot Doctor's Manual. This one goes back, I think, to the Mao's Cultural Revolution, where basically they wanted to get there. I think in a similar situation to we are now, they wanted to make sure there was medical help for everybody. So they just trained a whole bunch of people to go out and what can you do? And so that there would be somebody who could help everywhere in China. And we need more of that. We need more respect for the local healers. Another thing I'm going to mention here, this one is another symbolic one. Interactions, because drugs and drugs and vitamins, and oh my goodness, just remember nutrition. In my view, every cell in your body needs two things. It needs the foods that that particular one requires, and it needs energy. And Reiki and other forms of that will give you energy, but you got, let me give that three things. It also needs water. Stay hydrated, get sleep. Yes. But yeah, you got to pay attention to your nutrition. People really want to be able to just go out and buy a pill, and you got to look at the way your life is going. Yeah. And
stay hydrated is so important. I'm sorry to interrupt. Staying hydrated is so important. I wound up about 2 weeks ago in the emergency room on early Friday morning because I had arrhythmia, because I had my best exercise session ever the Thursday afternoon. And I woke up in the morning, I went to bed in the morning and was finding myself with a heart that was thumping, and one of those proverbial baby elephants on my chest. And that's how I wound up with it. It was probably dehydration because I made more effort and didn't keep drinking water enough. And Toaster is getting extra water because she probably has either kidney disease or diabetes or both. And she's in hospice and is drinking a lot. And she's come to me for it generally.
Yep.
Get some comfort from me as well as the water.
Yeah, dehydration is no joke. I spoke to a doctor recently about that because I had gotten kidney stones due to dehydration. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy. That shit is awful. But yeah, she said, dehydration literally affects every organ in the body, even your brain shrinks. I was like, get the fuck out of here, for real? And she was like, yeah, your brain literally shrinks. This is why, you start to get headaches. It's like really bad. But to bring it back, when it comes to spiritualism and healing, we have this whole thing, like there's an entire lesson that takes several weeks just on the concept of water and how important it is to have in your body, how important it is to your gifts and your faculties, your clairs, how important it is to help transfer and transmit and interpret energy, just all the purposes of water and why we need it. It's so vital. You're 100% right, Feather. Like.
And one of the things that you may or may not have thought of, I discovered this when I noticed the cats were going on our kitchen altar, and every day we would fill the chalice in the kitchen altar and I would bless it. And for me, blessing consisted of very little more than holding it and putting 3 breaths on it, infused with as much energy as I can, and saying, blessed be thou water. And we put it, and the cats were ignoring their bowls of water, and they were going up on the altar and drinking the blessed water because they preferred the, I'm assuming, energetic composition of the holy water there. And so we started blessing their bowls. And that is one of the things that is in, God, I remember that from in the 70s when Jose Silva was teaching his mind control magic. And he would go to friends' rooms when they were in the hospital. He'd visit them and he would bless the little water jug on the side of the table for them. And that it would, so that they would heal faster. Well, yeah, we can do that. We can all do this. And now, of course, we know you can do it at a distance. So you don't have to, if they're in the hospital in California, you can still send energy to them, but you can bless their water. And yeah, they should be drinking the water too. But yeah, I found that if I get dehydrated and I shake my head, I can kind of feel the brain shaking inside. It's like, I better get. Do you know that a lot of headaches are are responding to the glass of water you take the aspirin with, not to the aspirin? And so if our family is sensitive and open, so we'll walk into the room and suddenly there's a headache. It's like, okay, is this my headache or is this one of yours? It's like, I'm sorry, that's me. And have you had any water today? Okay, go drink some water.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I'm so grateful for with the Catholic religion that I grew up with was the prayers at every meal, and the prayers like before bed and when you wake up in the morning and all that, like blessing your food, blessing your water, blessing your food. One of the things that you hear a lot of in like the social media world, right? Whenever we talk about, eating healthy and watching our nutrition and drinking right water, is you'll hear like this counter argument of, oh, well, that's elitist because, healthy food is so expensive and not everyone lives in the country where they can have their own garden and grow their own food, blah, blah, blah. And, my counter argument to that is, you know what, you're right. You're right. Access to organic, healthy food is hard for a lot of people in this country. And that's why we pray. That's why we bless our food, because at the very least, you can imbue it with spiritual nutrition. If it comes with nothing else, at least it'll have spiritual nutrition.
This is Michelle again.
That is, I was going to say, that's another thing you can do, which is that one day my daughter came down and she was not feeling well and she had no energy, and she had put on her amulet, and I said, you need more Uru's energy, which is a rune for more energy. And she took that, she'd put on the Ur pendant, and she said, well, we're not going down. So I said, you jackass, because in a loving way. And, make a peanut butter sandwich and put, and draw the urus in it. Make a bologna sandwich and put the ur on that. Make a bowl of soup. No, it doesn't last long. When you're making a sauce, when you're making a curry, when you're making any freaking thing you're eating, you can take any healing, any empowering, any symbolism, because symbols have a lot of power, and you can put them in the food by drawing them on, and then you can ingest it.
Creates the symbol in the broth with your spoon.
Yep.
So we can do that. I mean, if you're Christian, you could put a cross on it. That blesses everything. If you're a witch, you can pentagram it. It's whatever your blessings are, put them on. And as Leilani said, the poor can afford religion. So, yay.
Sometimes.
Thank goodness for that.
Michelle?
Yeah, the one I wanted to add in, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. is I do a lot of historical dance research, and I've seen a lot of performances. And some of the Saidi and some of the Uzbekis people, they dance as they do their food. So a lot of them still traditionally will do the baskets to get rid of the stuff and get rid of the chaff. So they sing blessing songs. And when they gather them up, they wash them and then they pound the corn. There's songs and prayers that go into it. So it adds the layer of energy before it even gets to your dinner table. And they have areas where they put out extra food, just kind of like, like a little box for anybody who needs it, who can't afford it. We have extra cucumbers, we've got extra this, and they pass the blessings around. And they take a very much of a community, even though it's a small area. They will dance their language and or energy into the food, and then carry it through by the making and then gifting it. Like if they'll have enough left over, they'll have for the visitor, and then the visitor will be packed up and go to like the little nana down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
there's other ways we can still add it in within our daily practice. We don't have to dance everything. Some of us are a little old and fragile.
Let's see, is there anything anybody else can think of that, especially like the cheap and available ones? Okay, or anybody got a how do I deal with this? I mean, yes, I think universally the headaches, the sinuses and headaches. My children taught me the use of rose quartz. Take those tumbled rose quartzes, put them in water, let it sit there 10 minutes, and then drink the water.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a rose quartz elixir. Makes the water even more powerful.
Mhm.
Just make sure that whatever mineral it is not one of the water soluble ones.
Yes,
Well,
it's
that's
not
why
when
I
you can.
specified rose quartz.
Yeah, it's
Which
not when
is-
you
which-
apply
which-
across the
Which
board.
is why I'm always, because don't try the calcite, it'll dissolve.
hmm
And nothing with a copper base like malachite or azurite or turquoise, for the same reason. The copper oxide will go into the water, and that's just not good for you.
Research any stone you're thinking about doing this with, because it's not just copper bases. There are other bases that would be bad.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, any of the arsenics, galena, which is lead,
hmm
yeah, not a good idea.
Yeah.
No, a friend of mine had his, he ended up in the hospital with liver failure, and he almost died because he had not washed his hands sufficiently well after using one of the, I think it was a copper-based paint, and he had washed his hands, but not carefully enough before he had his lunch, and ended up in the hospital the next day, and almost died of it. So you've got to be very careful, because just because it's natural does not mean it's safe.
Arsenic
but-
is natural.
Yep.
Mhm.
So is the verdigris on a copper bowl, which,
And so is the cyanide in apple seeds.
but you don't really, if you eat an apple and eat the core, you're probably not going to have chewed on the apple seeds. It's people who eat the apple seeds.
You need about a cup of them before it gets
Yeah.
dangerous.
And a tree
But
will not grow in your stomach.
No.
No, I taught my children to eat their cores and swallow their gum, which was horrified my mother. But I said, I never had to clean gum out of the inside of a wastebasket.
Or
So
the underside of a table, or
that was good enough for me.
I know you had mentioned, so, you mentioned like getting good rest, you mentioned water, and a lot of plants and stones and stuff. I think another one that's oftentimes underestimated is the healing power of our breath. Not necessarily, exercising, because I know a lot of people have physical, things that they can't exercise with, but my point is usually some kind of a yoga or some kind of a breath work that you can work on allows your body to heal itself. I think the difference between a lot of Western medicine and a lot of medicines that you might see in the East, or even more indigenous medicines, is that it's definitely, the goal of the healer is to never see their patient again. That's the go. You know what I mean? And so we as we heal, we teach how to maintain this healing and how to continue to live a life of proactive healing versus reactive, emergency healing. And breath is one of those things that's just so easily in your control. Intaking of water is easily in your control for the majority of people. Getting good rest, again, in your control for the majority of people. And once you have these things in a routine, then those things that used to hold you back, like concentration, focus, this, that, they become null. And it becomes a cycle that allows you to just continue moving forward in a positive way. The minute you come out of that rhythm, it becomes a domino effect, and then it's harder to start up again. But definitely breath is one of those things I try and teach as much as possible. Keeping your lungs clear,
I have the issue of having gone too much of my life not exercising really. It wasn't until very late that I got a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which would explain an awful lot of my not having to get up and go, and not feeling like I was comfortable doing any kind of fitness level of exercise.
Yeah.
I currently, and for the past year and a half, have been exercising in virtual reality. I have an Oculus Quest 2. I go in, I have programs that I exercise along with, and they have a program that's part of the basic software in the Oculus Quest 2 that you can use to track your calories expended and the number of minutes you've been active enough that it counted. And my exercise routine rotates around several activities that are games. And I do 5 or 10 minutes of one, and then I intersperse it with a more relaxing thing like making a 3D jigsaw puzzle. I make sure that every session includes one round of meditation with breath awareness. There's a wonderful app called Maloka, Maloka. If you have virtual reality, get it. They take you through so many types of meditations. There's one woman who has a series of about 8 different sessions of different lengths, and as she explains, she put Reiki energy into every bit of it. There's a free level that gives you plenty to work with, and there's a premium level that gets you Deepak Chopra and people like that. But I make sure that breathing exercise is at the end of every session. And it's helping a lot. As long as I stay hydrated.
Hail hydrate, as we do it at the fair.
At the risk of voicing an unpopular opinion, just to give a balanced perspective, yes, plants and stones are helpful and can be of great benefit, but let's not forget that Western medicine also has its place and its effectiveness. It was Western medicine that got rid of things like polio and smallpox and other things, diabetes, being able to extract insulin. Let's not forget that like I say, Western medicine has its place also.
Oh yeah, I am hugely dependent on Western medicine.
Definitely. I think it has its place. I definitely think it has its place, especially now. But when where I can kind of counter that is when we talk about our history, when we talk about our past. And not even actually, if you just observe history, you'll notice that a lot of these ailments, a lot of these diseases don't just pop out of nowhere. They are the result of behavior. They are a result of their consequences to actions. And I think where Western medicine falls short is not making that connection between our relationship to nature and to each other, and the consequences of that. And when we talk about indigenous cultures, and when we talk about cultures who didn't have to worry about polio and didn't have to worry about, because the behaviors that they had with nature, the behaviors that they engage in, especially hygiene, the people of the Caribbean and my people were so, I mean, when I say cleanliness is second only to godliness, is literally the mindset of these people constantly. So those behaviors and those relationships, they didn't have issues like that. Mental health issues were looked at very differently as well. When we talk about diseases, it would be a consequence of maybe touching the wrong animal or eating the wrong plant, but it was never a disease of like, oh, I have diabetes because I intook too much sugar, or because my system can no longer break down sugar because of the behavior I've been engaging in all this time. A lot of our diseases are consequences to actions. And I think Western medicine is a wonderful solution to that right now. But I think us as healers need to bring everyone back to before that was even a problem.
I am fully aware that so many of my problems, no one was diagnosing fibromyalgia in the 1960s. Nobody was diagnosing little girls with autism in the 1960s.
They were barely diagnosing boys.
Right. And so there are so many issues I clearly had that weren't discovered until 10 years ago.
And I mean, but that's also explained too. I mean, now when the science gets better, we now have the technology to be able to diagnose certain things. We can now observe it and see it in real time. So that's not to say autism didn't exist. So that's not to say people with fibromyalgia didn't exist back in the days. It's just we didn't know what that looked like.
Existed.
And of course, Western medicine, again, brought us to a whole new level with observation and all that. But again, I still feel it's one of those things. And I try my very best to toe this line gently, because it's so easy to go to the other extreme. The other extreme is, oh, everything has a spiritual problem. You don't have schizophrenia. You don't have schizophrenia. You speak to spirits. No, bitch, I have schizophrenia. That's a real thing. Let's not get it twisted. But at the same time, there is something to be said about spiritual diseases and how they manifest in the physical. And it's up to us as healers to be able to discern that. Like, it's so hard. Like, when people come in for healing, I have a whole fucking assessment sheet that they have to fill out. Family history, medical history. I need to know whether or not I need to refer to you to someone else because your shit is not spiritual. And that's a very tough discussion to have with people. But I think this right here is a great platform for it. You guys, this is awesome.
That's what I've been trying to do for myself, is find solutions both in the traditional Western medicine and in the traditional spiritual medicine. And working to those things together, where one fails, the other one fills in the gap,
Adding on to Lois, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but adding on to what Lois is saying about Western medicine, don't forget the role of genetics and cultural heritage. Like along the Pima Indians out in the Midwest, when they ate their traditional diets, when it was available, the buffalo and the wild grains, they weren't diabetic. When that stuff was taken away from them and they lost their access to their foods, they had to go to the starch whites and the sugars, something that had never been available to their culture or their peoples for thousands of years. So genetically, they were pre-programmed for a specific type of diet. They actually did a medical study where they wound up getting a lot of very, very obese, like 200-300 pound people who were diabetic and had all this. And they managed to put them on their traditional diet. Yes, they did some exercises, but the doctors monitored them to see, okay, is this what their body really needs because of their genetic profile and makeup? I hate
Mhm.
profiling people genetically, but it's something we really need to think about because different cultural and ethnic groups have
Oh, yeah.
predispositions to different things. So
Facts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how do you pronounce it's Chichipacan?
Typicon, yeah.
Typical,
Yeah, sorry. Just like you were saying how plants can turn their medicine off. The same thing with the genes of people. Our diseases can be turned on and off. We have the potential to be the most superhero person that's perfect in health, and we also have the potential to be a sickly, dying vessel. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of that. And it's funny that you say that, Michelle, because I was having this me and my husband a couple of years ago, we went to a restaurant, right?
Mhm.
And they served us this meal that had two different kinds of chili peppers on it. One kind he recognized right away. It was a chili pepper that he finds in India, very common. And the other kind I recognized right away because it's a chili pepper that's found in Puerto Rico.
Mm.
So we were eating our food, and when he got to the Puerto Rican pepper, his face was like liquefying. His face was getting red. He could not handle his life. Okay. And then when I got to his Indian pepper, same thing happened to me. But when we ate our home peppers, that wasn't an issue. It was just like, it's like candy, and it just goes to show that your body, where you come from, matters. The context of your genetic background. It's not that we're different. Of course we're human. The differences lie in how our body relates to the area that we live in. That's the difference. And that's not a bad thing. It's a great thing that helps us learn from each other. But you're right. There's definitely something there. Like, I'm lactose intolerant. Why? Because there's no fucking cows in Puerto Rico. There's no cows over there. They were brought over there. And now we have all lactose intolerant Puerto Ricans hanging out,
Yeah,
So,
for what it's worth, my ancestors all came from Scandinavia and Scotland.
Yep.
You got the
Anybody who's
August.
Yeah,
there are no lactose intolerant Scots.
right.
Too much cheese.
Yep.
But there
Cheese
It's
and
is,
just
butter.
like it's just
There-
like
there-
mine, which come from Ireland, Scotland, Russia, Ukraine,
Mhm.
and points east.
Yeah, and it's my grandparents who came to this country, so it's not far in my background that I have the genetic imprint of these lands.
I bet you if you go back to eating your ancestral foods, 90% of your health problems will start to disappear. I can promise you that. There's books about it written. It's amazing.
I wish it were easy because
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I'm disabled enough. My husband and I both that we can't cook much.
Yeah.
So
Kind of hard to, the supermarkets don't carry a lot of that.
I get Swedish meatballs from Marie Calendar.
But we do. One of the things that I was thinking about was the way that there is an energetic component to a lot of our behavior, a lot of the response, and I find it not surprising that cancer, which occurred in about 7% of the people back in 2000 in the 1900, had gone up to almost, it was moving from 1 in 3 to 1 in 2 when we got to 2000. And what is cancer? Cancer is uncontrolled growth. What is the American culture about?
What would that be?
Uncontrolled growth. That's growth is what, and therefore I'm not surprised that this is the signature disease of, you might say, what is diabetes? It could be something that you're not dealing with sweetness. It might be not dealing with the amount of
It's stress.
Excessive. It's so it is not inappropriate to look at the energetic things. You should always also include the nutrition, the chemistry, but also include Serge King has a wonderful diagnostic thing that he has mentioned is people will come to him and they will have he's got a problem with his hip, or he's got a problem with his shoulder. And where's this from? It's from tension. It's from the fact that he's spending every day with a coworker who desperately needs to be slapped. And he has to restrain himself from doing that, which causes constant tension in his shoulder, which has created a constant ache. Or his boss desperately needs a kick in the pants. But so what he has to do is to release that tension in that client so that he is not making himself hurt because of the tension that is coming from his emotional environment. So there's so much. Anybody know Louise Hay and Hay House?
Yeah.
Because she had something I think called the Little Blue Book, where she was a counselor and she noticed that there was a pattern of diseases that happened with people who had certain psychological problems. Of course, we see the same thing, and I find it very useful in Bach's flower remedies, where they make tinctures from very homeopathic, but they will say oak is something for the people who are. His point was, you attract a disease to you because you have a certain personality trait, and it is oppressing you rather than serving you. And so he says, okay, take this flower essence or this mineral essence, and it will help you. And the one I remember is beech, which is for people who are constantly complaining, and because it reminds me of bitching. But the oak is for the person who tries to stand strong even though they are overburdened. And I found that the flower essences can be helpful. So there's another thing you can look at. If you have gone through with your nutrition and you've gone through, okay, I'm getting enough sleep, I'm getting as much sleep as I can, I've reduced as much stress as I can. And the rule is, if you don't have time in your life to meditate for half an hour a day, then you need to meditate for an hour a day.
Right.
So
If I could interject here.
Arkenstone's got his hand up.
Yeah.
But it's Arkenstone.
And it's almost time to end things too. So
it is, but Arkenstone looked like he was saying something.
exactly.
Yeah, yes, I was going to interject about stress, and then you brought it in. But one thing about milk intolerances, it may not be lactose. It is probably a casein A gene that most of American cows have. New Zealand and Europe have been breeding to casein B, because casein A will encourage lupus, any number of autoimmune issues, you name it. And
That's me.
So the thing is if you get real organic milk, which comes from places, and then it's expensive. But the people in my house been saying they've been lactose intolerant. I get them Vermont milk. Oh, I can drink this. Well, it's the type of casein.
For sure. Actually, when I go to India, I can't wait, because they their whole confectionate is dairy, because they worship the cow. So I'm really curious to see how my body reacts to that dairy.
Well, it depends on the cow. New Zealand, you may be even better. The thing about diet and our nature, it's a matter of alleles, because genetically you could probably somebody can process more carbohydrates and the others more protein. I'm a protein person, okay? And the thing is, I can't get enough protein to satisfy my diet. And it's greens and protein, but nowhere else, they can't get up to that dietary level. So yeah, but the thing is, it isn't diabetes isn't so much sugar. it is the cry gene that they have modified corn, soy, and canola, which is 99% of all the oil that they've been feeding us for the past 60, 70 years. And corn's been bad anyway, but that cry gene, that oil, it's not so much the sugar, it's the oil that will cause insulin resistance. And then come to find out, because I've had issues where I've had to get antidepressants, Prozac, and a handful of other antidepressants actually will precipitate diabetes.
Oh.
And that and pain medicines will precipitate fibromyalgia. And antidepressants like Prozac, in some percentages, can cause hearing loss because it's toxic. Now, but the thing is, did they tell you? No. So I stopped it. My hearing hasn't got any worse. My diabetes isn't any better. It isn't any worse either. But the thing is I cut all that stuff out of my diet. So just paying attention to some of these things that obviously you cannot get that information in this country, because it's almost the whole New Zealand thing. You have to go to New Zealand and read all about casein B and Europe. That information will never make it here because agribusinesses basically you get fed what you feed. I mean,
okay, I'm going to have to cut us off because it has gotten a little bit late. But I'm before I go, I'm going to remind everybody to reserve for Changing Times, Changing Worlds, where many of the people who you see here will be speaking. And it's going to be in November, virtual, November 7th through the 13th. And we look forward, tell your friends, otherwise they'll get mad at you when you're raving about how wonderful it was. And they say, why didn't you tell me beforehand? So it's not expensive. So anyway, so that's it. And I'm going to thank you. Next week, the show is going to be about the history of Changing Times, Changing Worlds. We're going to talk about some of the weird stuff that's happened and some of the wonderful
that
people
sounds like fun.
Oh, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But
let's leave out the nasty bits, however.
yeah, but we don't have time for them in order to squeeze in all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
anyway, we will see you
Bye-bye,
guys
crew.
next week, and you go eat your curry, Star Wolf.
Okay. Thank you.